Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. My name is Patrick Lyons. I'm one of your co-hosts, partners in crime, and I'm here again with Patsy Feeman. Patsy, welcome back.
Thank you.
And once again, we are without our colleague Leb Tannenbaum, who we expect to be back for our next episode. We're joined again by Carina Hamel and Robby Ringer. Welcome back to the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Long time no see. It's been a few minutes.
Yes.
In real time, in podcast time, it's been 2 weeks. But we are picking up, this is part two of our conversation with Robby and Carina. In part one, we talked about the value of creating a strategic plan, helping that distill ideas down from many into the right ones, and some of the challenges of or how that can help you navigate through some of the challenges. In this episode, we want to talk a little bit more about how did your plan help you navigate through the decision-making process? How do you stick to it? How do you adjust? And we'll get a little bit into some of the behaviors that as a leader can help you through stick to executing your strategic plan. So actually, that's a great place to start. Carina and Robby, welcome back. First question right out of the gate. As you were executing your strategic plan, which was in episode one, we talked about how that was somewhat of a new thing, creating that long-range plan. What were some of the leadership behaviors or skills that you needed to develop as you were executing your plan?
I think for both of us, and me in particular, is learning to say no, not necessarily to other people or even to myself, but just like different opportunities. I think we tend to definitely have a lot of ideas, and it's hard to turn them down, turn opportunities down, or just say no to an idea that seems like a really good one, because we realize that you just can't do it all. Especially, we have two young kids, and we don't have enough time. We like never have enough time, and so we've had to learn to say no to things and just look at what's moving the needle the most, and know that other things can wait. And having the ability to say that has definitely given us both, I think, relief from some anxiety around like just not getting our to-do list done.
Yeah. But I love that. It's easier to say no when you do know what's moving the needle the most. That is really profound. How about you, Robby?
I'll start by reiterating that. I mean, I would say me more than Carina gets overwhelmed by those opportunities that strike you, and then like the anxiety, I guess, that comes with them. So that's yes, that's probably the most powerful thing, because there's been times where we haven't had as much of a plan, and that's exactly when it becomes super confusing. What do you prioritize? What are you going to do today? You can't even take a step back to that 30,000-foot view that I was saying and go, we're kind of in the framework. It's like, I don't know. To kind of go away from that, though, I think one thing that's been really helpful, we have a small team now, which is great. And we talked a bit about this in episode one, but really focusing on people's personality and understanding them. It's not always me or Carina that's going to get the job done. And like our job as leaders is understanding like who's best fit for what task and who wants to do it, and how can we allow them to follow their own kind of like energy where their passion is. So happy that we now have a small team, and it's not just us having that conversation or looking to the other person. But I think, how does that help you stay in the plan? Well, again, you're not going to do it alone. And in a small business, like everyone wears 10 different hats, and sometimes those hats pivot more frequently than you probably like to admit. So like really understanding, what does Patrick like to do? How do you operate? Like, are you a super organized person? Like, how do you handle like a high stress situation? Or like, if I throw you off the deep end, will you succeed? Like, not that any of those are strengths or weaknesses necessarily, but they're just who you are. And I think understanding that has really helped us figure out how we stay in the framework of our strategic plan and accomplish it together.
Have you included your people in the process of creating the plan, or is it something that you've created separately between the two of you, and then you've brought that back and shared it with them?
A bit of both. We do a lot of like the higher level strategic planning. We've got somebody actually still based in Portland, Oregon, that does our product development. So a lot of like the product road mapping and that part of like the piece of the puzzle is done jointly. We've got a guy here named Sam that focuses on the operations side of the business. So I would say like it's a team effort, but we do a lot of the rolling it together into that like universal 4-year roadmap, if you will, and then figuring out how to communicate that to everyone. So a bit of both.
Well, and listening to you talk about knowing your people and trusting your people makes me kind of sense that you live pretty consistently within we talked about values, but within a culture. So how would you describe your culture? It's a little bit.
Well, we talk a lot about fueling more fun. So I think that's like we both grew up performing or like sports performing. And so we trained a lot growing up. And so we both always performed our best when we were having fun. And we had some coaches that were really good at that and some coaches that were not very good at that. And I like recognize looking back now, those coaches and it's like it correlated exactly to when I was performing my best. And so going back to just the personality thing, like we see our team where they are having fun and what they like doing. Like, and it can be like, for me, it's kind of funny when you see somebody like really get excited about an Excel sheet that they created, but like, that's so cool that somebody loves that and they love organizing it and making it look good and it makes sense to them and it just like helps them clarify. So I think like we are a small team and we have the ability to pivot in many ways. We have a lot of jobs that all of us have to do. And if you let somebody run with what they're passionate about and what they're good at, they're going to do a really good job. And I think that's something that we've learned in particular since we started Bivo is we do give our team a lot of freedom to work towards something that they're really excited about. And sometimes it's not the way that I would do it, but being able to trust your employee to do it in the way that makes sense for them and making sure they understand our values so that they represent Bivo well and who we are. That has been hugely beneficial in growing our team. And I think that that's something that we've really tried to focus on this year.
Very independently motivated people, I would say, is like something we try to hire for. Not to say something bad about us, but I think we're more on the side of pushing people in the deep end than we are in being like, here's exactly like how you're going to work and what you're going to do. And I think like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I kind of thought that was a worse thing. Now I'm kind of like just enjoying it. And if you hire the right people to thrive in that situation, it actually works. Obviously there's times when that doesn't work, but I think that that's become a big piece of the puzzle for us too. It's just like finding like-minded people, whether they're really gifted and love and geek out on Excel or not is beside the point. Like it's that type of framework and like headspace that they live in.
But yeah, well, we're talking about making, using your plan, using your vision to make good decisions. How do you decide who to hire? How do you decide? How do you find those people? What's the process that you go through?
Well, for Bivo, we've honestly only really hired 2 full-time people. And we have looked at the cycling community being important, not necessarily somebody who has to be a former racer or anything, but just somebody who is also passionate about the cycling world. That's been important for us. We actually do have people take a personality test so that we can kind of understand who they are and does that match the description for the job, because sometimes you find somebody who's so awesome and you want to hire them, but then they might not be as organized as they should be, or don't like being out in social situations, that kind of thing. So I think we've used that actually, that's been helpful. And I honestly think we've done a better job hiring since we've started looking at being like really pointed at understanding who the person is themselves rather than even their past experience.
Also really like fast tracks, I think, the like onboarding process. I think looking back at hiring people at 9, the footwear business that we ran, we didn't do that. We didn't focus on like the personality side as much as we focused on this. We focused more on the skill side, if you will. And I think that leads to like learning who the other person is and back and forth in the first 3 months versus like stepping into it and going, I know you thrive in this situation. Like if you're not saying that, but you're just thinking that as the manager, right? Going, okay, like I'm going to deliver it like this to Patrick when I teach him this or ask him to do this. I think it really helps speed up that kind of that awkward first few months where you're getting to know each other.
Well, and it's, at least from our experience, it's those awkward first couple of months that people can decide this isn't, they may be a great fit, but because you don't get them on board soon enough, they decide to leave. So kudos to you.
Yeah. And I want to clarify. I know you said you've only hired 2 people at Bivo. You had a larger team at the footwear company prior to that. And you're in part 1 of this conversation, you were talking about only working with people that you like, right? Or at least trying
good people who care. Good people who care.
Yeah. Okay. Good people who care. Yeah. Good people. Well, okay. My assumption is if you're working with good people who care, you probably like them, right? It's maybe it's not the litmus test, but at least it's an outcome. But my guess is that it's very much what you just described for hiring the employees that you have. And that is, there's personality fit is do I enjoy working with this person? And those are the decisions. And I think it comes back to, I think it comes back to values, which you did that work years ago of defining what are your values. And is that part of, does that factor into that personality evaluation when you're like, because you can like somebody and they have a completely different set of values. It's probably going to be a challenge working together.
Yeah. One that strikes a chord for me, and this is from our work, however many years ago that was, Patrick, but curiosity was a value on there. And like, that was very much, it's very much something that was part of the footwear business. Like that's our job for clients, right? Like being constantly curious and like what's happening in the market, what's changing, what colors, materials, like styles, like where's footwear in the world going? It's something, it's absolutely why Bivo is created. Like, cause we're just curious people at heart and like we're questioning things and talking and chatting but it has definitely come with us into how we hire people. And we have, I would say, traditionally hired, I don't want to sound bad, but like less experienced people that are newer in their careers, but we've aligned really well with our values. And I think it's been really interesting to do it like that and be much more clear about what those values are in the world of hiring for Bivo and the world of hiring for 9, because I think curiosity is to circle back on that, like we've just hired a couple new people in the last year and both of them have a very strong like curiosity streak. And I think that was very apparent in their interviews. And it's like, okay, you don't know necessarily, like you don't have tons of real world experience here, but if you're super curious, both of them are passionate cyclists and like love the community, they're like, you're going to figure it out. And oh, by the way, that does kind of align with the fact that like, we're not going to like hold the reins very tight. We're kind of, like I said, a little bit more on the sink or swim. Not that we really do that, but like that type of person really, I think, thrives. So I don't know. It's taken us a lot of years to get it right, and we're by no means right, but we're closer that direction.
For sure.
To figuring it out.
Absolutely. Patsy?
So in the previous episode, you gave us an example of when you had to make a really difficult decision, when you had a new product that showed up to launch and it didn't meet your quality standards. And if we're focusing on decision making in this episode, what is another example or kind of crossroads you've come to where you had to make a really difficult decision? And how did you, first of all, do that? And then how did you communicate that?
Recently, we actually have kind of changed the way that we're approaching the way that we speak to our customers. So we came out of the gates wanting to come off as like a very professional brand and we are. I mean, we know we have a lot of experience and our product is really good. But I think we almost came off as too professional. We were like too dialed. And that
from the look and feel.
From the look and feel, but from a marketing standpoint. And marketing is definitely like our least practiced part of our business.
Well said.
And so we really, honestly, I think we felt a bit stuck. We're like, how do we make sure that we're resonating with our customer, yet we're also being personal? And like, there is a story behind me and Robby as the founders of the business. And I think like we can bring people in and kind of tell them more about who we are and who our team is. And this is a case where actually, I think we really listened to our team. A woman who works for us, Izzy, she really pushed us on using less professional photography, and also just like talking a little bit, making me and Robby talk about ourselves, because we actually really don't enjoy that too much. But especially, but not like, this is easy because, you know, it's a podcast and it's like, it feels like a conversation, but just like public speaking and being out in front of people, it's not necessarily something we love. And like really talking about ourselves personally isn't something that either one of us goes for too frequently. And so she really pushed us on that. And we've definitely changed the way that we communicate to our customers through our newsletters and our blogs. And we're just trying to be a little bit more personal. And that's definitely been working, which is really cool. Like you can see the data on Klaviyo, our email marketing campaign software. And it's fun to see that happening. And it also just feels better. Like we're having more fun with it and it feels more real. And so that was something that actually was communicated to our team through brainstorming on how to be better at the emails and marketing campaigns. And so we've pushed for that in the last 4 months or so, and we've definitely seen changes. And while it was hard because it's going against the grain, it's like you look at all the emails out there and they all kind of look the same, and we're trying to do something differently in a space that we're not as confident in. And so, yeah, again, just going against the grain and listening to our guts and testing, like constantly testing. Like we said, okay, we'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to the other way. And so I think that's something that is hugely important to us as a brand as well.
So what was that moment where you decided to pause and ask that question? Or did one of your employees come up and say, hey, have you considered this? What was that moment 4 months ago or whatever period of time it was?
I think it was like bubbling for a while, and our employee did bring it up a few times. And then like the holiday season hit, and we were getting so many emails from other brands and looking at so many emails from other brands, and everybody was just getting inundated. I'm like, who wants this? Who wants this in their email box? And so we started talking about that. We did one test and we sent an email that was like, how to watch Nordic Skiing World Cup. That's it. Had nothing to do with the bottles.
You couldn't
click
bottle.
to a bottle. Like it was just, here's how you watch it. It's something that's super cool and fun to watch. And people loved it. It was really, I mean, it wasn't like hugely successful, but the response was really positive. And so I think like even just that one little test was a cool thing that was in the heart of the holiday season. Like everybody else is like pushing sales. Yeah. And this one was just like, here's something cool that's different in your inbox.
Yeah. You asked how we make the decision. I think we felt a lot of it. And then like, you have to be willing to experiment, even if just a little, because then I feel like you can actually feel your gut in there or see it, whether you're a gut person or a data person or a little bit of both. Like we just kept like hearing and seeing like all these email campaigns that just like felt like buy this, buy that. Here's 15% off, that we just didn't know how to fall in there. And our team was telling us that, and one of our mentors was telling us that, like, be different. We're a little bit afraid to talk about ourselves. This is a unique experience, but like we tried it and it felt good. Also, people emailed back. Like for the first time, we had more people responding to our email. Some people we knew, some people we didn't. Super short little sentences, but like that was like the indicator. We never would have gotten to that little indicator if we had just kind of like been in that weird little limbo land of, oh, we should probably change something, but I don't know what. So I think experiment is like the how we decide. We like feel it, then we've got to test it, and then it's like let's reanalyze again.
Well, it's striking me how you're now taking your motto, fuel more fun, into your marketing, so that it's kind of slowly permeating into all aspects of your business.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wonder if I can still find that. That sounds like a good little clip to look at.
Carina, I know from when we recently connected that another challenging decision for the two of you was having to close Nine Concept Creation, the footwear company that you ran together for 10 years. So in episode 1, we talked about how Bivo was launched during the pandemic, that it actually provided an opportunity that you could capitalize on, everybody getting out, getting on bikes, and it was just a cool opportunity. The pandemic also created challenges for you with Nine logistics. So talk about that decision. How did you make that? How did you arrive at that decision? And then how did you execute that decision to your values, to your to your plan?
Yeah, so we actually had our second baby during the pandemic. So Nolan was born August 2021. So we were running the footwear. It was a manufacturing and development agency. So we help brands design, develop, and produce footwear. And most of that was produced overseas. And the supply chain was an absolute disaster, as many of you probably know. It was like delays, expense, quality problems. I mean, it was just like endless. And being the middleman between a brand and production during the supply chain, or during the coronavirus, was like, it was a nightmare, to be honest. I mean, it was a huge challenge, and it was hard to explain what was happening. We couldn't be on the ground for any development or production. So we definitely were facing a lot of challenges there. And then I had a baby in August. And so that took me out of the equation. We had an amazing product developer, Christina. She was incredible. And she took over my role while I was out. But she was like, all right, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I tried to come back in December, and we had hired a nanny to take care of Nolan. And because we figured daycare, everything would be shut down with COVID still a problem. And day one of the nanny, when she was supposed to come, I had her take a COVID test just to make sure. And it was right when Omicron. Yeah, when that hit. And literally the day that she was supposed to start, she tested positive for COVID. So then my maternity leave was extended just like another month with like the holidays and where it was. And it was just like, we had Nine, we had Bivo, we had children during COVID, and it was just impossible. Like we couldn't hold it up anymore. So
we held on
probably too long,
but it became very evident.
Yeah. And so I was actually out walking Nolan with him in the front pouch over the holidays. And I wrote Robby an email. I think he was moving our bottles up to Vermont, living in Massachusetts. He was moving our whole production or whole warehouse up to Vermont. And I was just like, we're done. Like we can't keep doing this. And so it was like a really long email, and we talked about it, I don't know, that day or something probably, but we made the decision. It was time. And it's hard to say, like I talked about this, I think earlier, just saying no, but this was something that I had started when I was 28 years old, and we ran it successfully for 10 years together. And it was definitely a hard thing to stop. I mean, it was something that we had like so many cool adventures through those 10 years of running that business. And then the problem was we had several clients and employees, and we cared about all of them. And so we wanted to make sure that we would shut down in a way that like nobody would be put in a bad position. Especially it was still, part of COVID where supply chain was a mess. And so saying to all these brands like, oh, we're leaving, just didn't feel good. It felt like leaving somebody high and dry. And like we were hugely instrumental in a lot of their businesses. So we ended up pairing all of our employees with our clients, and we stayed on to help in that transition. So we transitioned over about 4 months, and then I stayed on consulting for another 6 months or so with a few. But yeah, it was definitely a hard decision, but we just knew finally we were like, all right, everything's going to fail if we don't stop one of them. We couldn't fail the kids, and we had invested a lot in Bivo. And so we chose the kids in Bivo and helped those other employees and clients move forward.
Yeah, and so you helped place your people. How did your values? To me, that just maybe I'm forcing the question, but it seems like that's making sure that you're taking care of your people.
Yeah,
is an important part of that. That as difficult as it is, you still want to do it the right way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we really care. Like we love product and the people. We were working so closely every day with these people, and we cared about them a lot. And so we just wanted to make sure that they were, put in a good place. I mean, it wasn't something that we were like, let's do this because it's the right thing. It was more just like, this is who we are, and we have to figure out how to make it good for everybody.
Yeah.
And of course, not everything's perfect. And I know some people were upset, but like we did it the best way we could.
We felt like we walked away, and we felt like we did everything we possibly could, and like are super happy that they got jobs. I think that was like a big thing for us, whether or not I don't want to speak for any of our old employees, but like we got them jobs in the middle of the pandemic when things were upside down. And whether or not you like us or hate us, at least we could give you that. Like that was a nice way to walk away and just be like, okay, like you will be able to put food on your table and have a job, and like
if Leb were here, one of his favorite questions is the mulligan question. If you, and you're sports fans, or you're athletes, not fans, you're athletes, so you get the mulligan. If you had a mulligan and could do that again, what would you do differently?
The same thing, only earlier.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. We probably should have done it before Nolan was born.
It was there was a bunch of different factors that kept us going, but I think like we also love problems and challenges, and we had relationships not only with our team but with our clients, and like we're not the type of people in the middle of a pandemic to say adios or bye, or like we quit. And I think we just held on to it should have been done earlier, but we thought we were doing it for the right reasons, and I think we did. I'm not gonna like second guess it, but I wish we would have like something had slapped us in the face a little bit earlier to do it the same way.
I mean, I think if the pandemic had not happened like that, we would have been able to manage it all. It was just I think nobody could have expected at the time that the coronavirus hit that even now we're still talking about it a lot, and it lasted a lot longer than we anticipated.
Yep.
And having 2 kids is really hard.
Yeah, understood. Patsy, any other questions?
I think I'm good for today.
Okay. Well, as we do at the end of every episode, are you guys ready to get practical? Because we are big fans of the saying that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So for our listener who joined us for this episode, part 2 of our conversation, if you missed part 1, make sure you go back and check that episode out as well. Lots of great information there. But for our listener who joined us for this episode, what are some things that they can do today, tomorrow, to make inroads in the areas that we talked about today, potentially better decision making, not holding on too long? Carina and Robby, we'll give you an opportunity to go first. What comes to mind?
I would say experimenting. We talked a little bit about that, and I just, for me in particular, like it's a confidence thing. Feeling that you have a decision to be made, or feeling one way that you think you're going to go. Like experimenting to me just allows me to make that decision. Like you get a bigger gut feeling or more data or whatever it is you're looking for to push you over that hurdle. So even if it's small, it's at least another great indicator. It's a step in the direction where you otherwise have no information coming to you.
Beautiful.
For me, I think this is especially in well, probably just because this is the situation we're in, but in a startup community where I think understanding your employees' personalities is hugely important. That is something that we've benefited from hugely over the last few years, and recognizing that everybody has strengths, and if you play to their strengths, they're going to be successful.
Love that one.
Yep, that's good too.
Why don't you take it next, Patrick?
Me? You said?
Yeah.
Okay. I liked learn to say no.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. There just isn't enough time, and in your organization there aren't enough resources including people. So make sure that you're prioritizing and be willing to say no to things. Just talked about know when to walk away. As hard as that is, holding on too long can impact you, impacts your customers. And I think you talked about, you have this other business over here. It can distract you it can take you away from the opportunities that are there right in front of you that are better. And then the last one I'll add, Patsy, I'll turn it over to you, is don't forget that there are people involved and impacted in your decisions. I thought it was great. You talked about wanting to make sure that your people were taken care of, even how the people factored into your decision to potentially hold on too long in the footwear companies, those people being your customers. And so remember that there are people involved in your decisions and factor that in. That's where I think your core values can guide you. Patsy, what do you think?
I have trust your gut and look at the data. I love those two things.
I like that.
It's like you can't do it. Yep, helps to have a right foot and a left foot to take a dance. So I like that one. And one that I'll get teary-eyed over, but fortunately our listeners can't see that, is know and live what you care about as a foundational piece to making decisions.
Yeah.
That's been really clear in both of these episodes, that you guys care deeply and that you live from that place.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Carina, Robby, any others you want to add?
I don't think so.
No.
I'll add one more. You talked about hiring, hire who the person is over what the person has done. Hiring for the personality and whatever data you need to collect, whatever the process is that you need to go through to have a good sense of what that personality is, hire that. And again, I think your core values can be your guide. So, Patsy, any more you'd want to add?
I would add, know that you have a plan. Develop a plan, know you have one, trust it, change it if it needs to be changed, but know that you have one to rely on. Beautiful. Excellent. That's got it.
Carina and Robby, tell us a little bit about Bivo. If a listener wants to learn more about it, how can they find out?
That brought a big smile. Look at
You're
that.
pointing at each other.
I
know. So Bivo is a performance metal water bottle designed for biking. So before we launched, there really wasn't a solution to have anything but a plastic water bottle fit into a bike cage. We came up with the idea because we wanted to, we had a really terrible experience drinking moldy old water out of a plastic bottle, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But anyways, it just dawned on us, quintessential strange light bulb moment. There's not a metal water bottle that fits into a bike cage. And at that moment, whatever it was, 3-4 years ago, the world was blowing up with metal water bottles, Hydro Flask and Yeti and Mirror and Clean Canteen, and it swelled, you name it. There's one sitting on everybody's desk, but in the things that we did every weekend, the sports that we love to do, we didn't have that. So anyways, Bivo is a metal water bottle that fits into a bike cage. Obviously you can't squeeze it. So we spent a lot of time designing what we call a gravity flow system. Thought it would take 6 months. It took us 18 months, which is why we launched in the pandemic. But you can drain this thing just by flipping it over faster than you can squeeze the plastic water bottle. So we tried to I would say like the two pillars we say is like we designed this from a health and sustainability standpoint, but we're both athletes, and that's like core of who we are, a core component of who we are. So if it did not perform as good or better than the competition that's out there, aka plastic cycling bottles, it wasn't going to work. So those are like the two
Cool.
things. That and have a heck of a lot of fun doing it. So
Feel the fun.
yeah.
Awesome. Where can someone find out more?
Yeah, we sell online at drinkbivo.com. And then if you go there, we also have a retailer locator. We're in about 50 to 60 stores across the US and Canada. So yeah, slowly
Excellent.
growing, quickly growing, but we're still small.
And can if a listener wants to contact either of you, can they do that through your website or through LinkedIn? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, you can reach out to Thirsty at drinkbivo.com and we'll be sure to get it.
Yeah,
Thirsty
we're
at,
all on that email.
excellent. Thirsty at drinkbivo.com. Carina, Hamel, Robby Ringer, thank you so much for joining us for this episode and part one of our interview with you as well. You guys are fantastic. I'm blessed to know you both for as long as I have, and I just continue to root for you, even though we're on opposite sides of the country now. So you're both great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
Pleasure to meet you both.
Yeah, I was like, Patsy, any final words?
I now share your enthusiasm, Patrick, for these two amazing people and the work you're doing. So
They're
thank
great,
you.
right? They're beautiful people. Okay, awesome. Listener, thank you so much for sticking with us to the end of another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. You can download this episode's companion, Let's Get Practical, from our website, thefrustratedceo.com, as well as all prior episodes. Let's Get Practicals and all prior episodes are there as well. If you have any ideas or suggestions for how you might, or for a future episode, or if you'd like to be a guest on the Frustrated CEO podcast, then connect with us on LinkedIn, Patsy Feeman, Leb Tannenbaum, Patrick Lyons, any one of us on LinkedIn. I think that's it. We've come to the end of another one. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.